welcome. So I was just saying that today's title for the class and the work that we're doing and the parts of the body that we're targeting is called Off the Posterior Chain. Hi Elsa, hi Kate. Okay, so we'll get going. We start pretty slow, so anyone who jumps on, just feel free to jump right in. Should be an easy kind of warm-up and movement prep before we get into the meat and potatoes and the good stuff. Okay, so you don't necessarily need a mat, you just need a comfortable surface. I've got a mat because I'm in my garage. Welcome to my garage. But carpet's good, towel's good, just you want to be comfortable wherever you are. Okay, so we're going to start lying face down, prone, for crocodile breath. So we're not going to spend too much time here, but you want to make sure that, as I said earlier, you're comfortable. So you can stack your hands, you can grab a block, you can grab a pillow, your arms can be alongside you if you want with your head resting on that pillow, or I just stack one hand on top of the other and rest my forehead down. So you can let your pelvis sort of move from side to side, rest the tops of your feet down, and just see if you have any areas that are still hanging on and contracting and turned on. We want those to turn off. And then with your breath, so you guys stay with your head on your hands, and I'll just lift my head so I'm talking at you and not at my mat. So in crocodile breath, or lying face down, our diaphragm and the excursion of the diaphragm as it descends on the inhale is limited somewhat because of the pressure on the belly, or the pressure of the belly on the ground. So what you want to try to focus now is with that slightly restricted, you should be able to feel on the inhale the outer edges of your torso and the ribs expanding, and also your low back and kind of your kidneys and the backs of your ribs. So I want you to focus on that. Let's take 3 breaths. So a nice inhale, try to do all your breathing through your nose. Breathe in and feel a 360-degree pressurization all around your spine. And then as you exhale, you just simply relax and you let go, and then you should feel like if you've got a waistband on, or you imagine you have a waistband or a belt on, that belt would get a little bit looser on the exhale as you turn into a smaller version of yourself. And we'll do that 2 more times, so on your own rhythm, not extending the inhales or the exhales longer than normal, you just finding your own native breath. So I'll do 1 more with you. So an inhale, flattening out any wrinkles in my shirt, and then exhale, relaxing back down. You can also put like a little blanket underneath your hip points or the front of your pelvis if this is not super comfortable for you. Okay, so from here, you can keep your head resting down, or you can pick it up. We'll start with the right leg. You're just going to start to flex the knee and then pull the heel in towards the bum, and you start to wake up that hamstring. So the back of your thigh, feel all the feels there, feel that contract, and then release. Let's do that 5 times. Doesn't matter what you do with your foot, but just do something. So you can point your foot or you can flex your foot. I'll let you decide. But really what we're aiming for here is just a nice sensation, activation, turning on that muscle behind your thigh, behind that big thigh bone, your femur. Let's do 1 more. And relax. So I didn't mention it on that side, but you don't have to necessarily feel the low belly hollowing away from the floor, tilting your pelvis back, but just make sure as you bend the knee and your heel comes towards your bum, make sure you're not, you see how my bum is sticking up here and I'm overarching that low back? We don't want that to happen. So if you tend to do that, then maybe press your pubic bone down, feel your low belly lift as you're doing it. So let's do, hopefully you were still doing those as I was talking. So again, do something with your foot. Try to pull that heel in towards your bum. I'll do a few with my toe pointed, see how that feels. And then let that go, relax. And now, so that was unilateral, 1 leg at a time. Let's do it with both legs at the same time. So this time we'll point the toes, flex the thighs, press the front of the pelvis down, and then squeeze, bring the heels towards the bum, and feel both hamstrings light up. Let's do 3 that way. One more. So you're still breathing, you're still feeling that 360-degree breath all around your spine. And now switch your feet. So dorsiflex now, pull the toes in towards the shins and do the same thing. 2 and 3. Now let that go, and now back to the right leg. Again, if your neck's bugging you, just feel free to relax your head down. Find that posterior tilt again, so press your pubic bone down and squeeze your bum just a little bit, and then with a straight leg now, lift up that leg. So the whole leg, it's not going to lift up too high, and then just let it drift away from your midline a little bit. So I'm opening it up to the right side. So as you abduct, you move away from your midline, and then let the toes turn out a little bit. You'll really feel that right glute fire up. So it likes that external rotation, and then come back, and let's do the same thing on the other side. So lift up, so straight up hip extension, and now abduct, pull it away from the midline, and then let the top of your foot open towards the left. And you should feel it get nice and hot and spicy right in that left glute. And relax it back down. So that's sort of a nice warm-up for the low body. Now let your forehead come down to rest. Again, you can pat under there if you need. Make cactus arms or touchdown arms. So you're forming 90-degree angles with your elbows. Palms will face down. And then tuck your chin in just a little bit. We want the work to be coming from the front. So you'll feel it in your pecs, your chest muscles, and your shoulders. And then conversely, when we lift, we'll feel it just behind the shoulders. So we're going to start just by keeping the same shape of your arms, but pressing down into the ground like you're trying to indent the floor. So let's do that for 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Keep the same shape of your arms and lift up. So squeeze your shoulder blades together. Don't let the wrists lift. Don't let the forearms lift or the elbows lift. Keep everything level. Head stays down, or it can lift a little bit. Squeeze like you're trying to pinch something at your spine, and then come back down again, and let's repeat that again. So keeping the same shape of the arms, those cactus arms, press them into the ground. So all the points of contact with the ground are pressing in evenly, like I'm trying to indent the floor. So you can hopefully feel that almost like you're doing a push-up. You're feeling your pectorals, your chest muscles light up in your armpits. And then keep that same shape, and now lift and squeeze. Like somebody said, I've got a $100 bill for you, but what you have to do is you have to pinch it at your spine. So send those shoulder blades in to try to capture that cash. Okay, now tuck your chin in, head is up if it wasn't already. And now you're going to lift your elbows, keeping the same shape of your arms. Lift your elbows as you tilt your fingertips down. Keep drawing that chin in because you don't want the work to be coming from the neck. We want it to be coming from the upper back and behind the shoulders. Now do the opposite. Without breaking the line here, try to touch the elbows down, so externally rotating. And then dip the fingertips down. They don't have to touch. And then the elbows down. So you should be feeling some feels in the backs of the shoulders as we wake up the rotator cuff on both sides. Let's do one more. Anytime you need the head to come down, it can. You can do the same work. It's a little bit easier to get some clearance with the head slightly lifted, but obviously you don't want any pain. And then stack the hands and just relax, and then you can let the pelvis shift from left to right. Good. Okay, from here, come to your right side. And if you've got a pillow nearby or a block, you can can prop underneath that right ear, or you can stretch that right arm out and then just let the ear come to rest on the upper arm. But what you want to have here is you want to be stacked. So with the part of my body that's up, my left-hand side, or I might be the reverse here because of the camera. It might be you might see my right side up. Whatever it is, whatever side you have facing up, make sure that your top hip is stacked over your bottom hip, and same thing with your shoulders. And as we go through this, we're going to do some hip cars, so tracing some circles with that kneecap. We want to make sure as we do it, we're not rolling backwards. So imagine that somebody's put a block or someone's standing behind you and it won't let your pelvis move backwards in space. So bring the knees up so that they're they're kind of perpendicular to your torso. And then you can clasp these hands together, or this arm can just come to rest. So we're going to start by lifting the knee up towards your top shoulder, and then open that knee up towards the ceiling. Flex your foot. And now again, stop here when you feel like that top hip is rolling back. Keep your knee there. You can even bring a fingertip to the knee. And now we're going to rotate inwards. So you're going to take that thigh and rotate it towards the front, or I'm rotating it towards you guys, towards the camera, internally, and then kick that foot back. Now we move into our hip extension as we were doing before. So my thigh is going to come parallel with my torso. Squeeze the bum, pull the heel in towards the bum, and then come, that's half of our circle, come rest it on the top of the bottom leg. Now kick that leg back, we're going to reverse our circle. So kick it back, squeeze the bum, pull the heel in. Now keep that same action happening with the muscles, and now abduct. So now without shifting my hips back, I'm just lifting my thigh up towards the ceiling. Now this is the tricky part now. So keep the knee where it is and then externally rotate. So I'm bringing my foot forward but keeping my knee in the same spot. Now bring your knee up towards your armpit and relax. And you can just turn over and switch sides, but for the purposes of you guys not seeing my butt during the next side, I'm going to shift over this way. So whichever side you were on, just change. It makes no difference. Just make sure you're not repeating the same side. So again here, stacked hips, stacked shoulders, and we'll start, and you can again brace, if you want, if you've got a couch nearby or a wall, you can even brace that lower leg up against the wall if you want to, or you can keep your knees stacked. So first things first is flexion. So feel the front of your hip, pull that knee up towards your top shoulder or your chest. Pull the heel in towards the bum already. Now open that knee up. Now be honest with yourself, you don't want to open up and fall over. So open it up and keep the hips, the top hip on top of the bottom hip. Now keep that knee where it is, and then we're going to rotate the lap, the front of your thigh, towards the front. You might have to lower your knee just a little bit and then kick that foot back. You should be feeling all the feels in the back of the leg and the bum. Now come into hip extension, still pulling my heel towards my bum, and then bring it back to rest just for a moment on that bottom leg. Now reverse the movement, so we kick back, hip extension. Keep squeezing that heel in towards your bum. Now keep that, so you've got your thigh lining up, hopefully as much as possible with your torso. Keep that action of pushing it back, squeezing your bum, lift the thigh up. Now that lateral hip should be talking to you. Keep the knee there, and then externally rotate. So we're taking the thigh and we're moving it back. And your foot should come forward, and now knee comes up towards your armpit, and then comes to rest on the bottom leg. Whew, that was good. Okay, come to a quadruped position or all fours. So you might, if you've got any issues with your knees here, have a couple of pillows nearby or a rolled up blanket or towel, and you can pad underneath your knees. And if hip flexion is an issue, you can always go in between the calves and the hamstrings. So come to all fours, and we'll just start by warming up the wrists. So I'll actually face you this way. So make sure that you've got your wrists underneath your shoulders. You've got your knees slightly separated underneath your hips. Then we'll just start by pressing into the fingers, almost trying to make a dome with your palms. Elbows stay straight. And then you're just going to rock forward slightly into hip, or not into hip, we're not balancing on our hips, into wrist extension. And then push back to kind of come out of it a little bit. And then into our passive wrist extension, still trying to bias the pressure into the finger pads. Okay, next open up the hands or the fingertips to the side, and then we'll just shift the weight from side to side. So just changing the angle of our passive wrist extension. Good, point the fingers back towards the front, and then you can just add a little bit of a circular movement, but again, staying active in those hands, change directions. Good, next, I'll go side on so that you can see what I'm doing. So we did our passive wrist extension, so go from there, and now sit back towards your heels, keep the elbows straight, and then see if you can lift the palms. So this is active wrist extension. So move into your passive range of motion. And then really challenge those wrist abs, the tops of your forearms, by lifting those hands up. Let's do that one more time. Yeah. Great. You can sit back, or you can come to a tall kneel. You can just shake that out. But now we've got our wrists prepped to bear weight in our quadruped position. So in your quadruped position, we're just going to move through some spinal segmentation. So just a fancy way of waving our spine through this movement, which is flexion, and this position, which is extension. So start by, again, having your wrists underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, and then push the floor away, release the head down, look back at your thighs. Let the neck go. You can shake your head yes, shake your head no. And then from flexion, pull your belly button up. Take a breath here. And then we'll start with the pelvis. So I'm going to start to tip the pelvis forward, and I'm going to lift the tailbone up. But I don't want anything else to come along for the ride. So you can think about the front body moving too as sometimes an easier way to feel this movement. So I'm softening my low belly, then my belly button down to the ground, then my front ribs, my sternum, my head and my neck want to jump along or jump in, but I'm not letting them, so soften in between the shoulder blades, and then finally look forward. Then we'll start again with the pelvis, or the bum is going to start the movement. So now we're in extension, so take a breath here. Again, not moving into any pain, but notice where you feel it in particular. So again, I'm going to tip my pelvis back. So my tailbone, my coccyx, is going to tip down if I had a tail, which I did like long ago. I'm letting my tail go in between my legs. It's a little bit of a sheepish move maybe. And then think about the front of your body toning and lifting. So low belly, belly button, keep looking forward. Front ribs, sternum, and then finally, my head comes back to flexion and let it go, and relax. Then walk your hands towards the right, so we'll be in lateral flexion, and we'll do the same thing. So round, and then start with your pelvis. So start by lifting your pelvis up, moving one bone at a time, one vertebra at a time. We'll go a little bit faster here. Gaze forward, starting again with the bottom. Tip your pelvis down. Keep gazing forward. I find this way a little bit more challenging. It might be different for you. Good, and then walk your hands over to the other side. So I'm getting a stretch in the right-hand side, and I'm in a lateral flexion on the left, and then I'm pushing the floor away, starting in flexion again, and start to tip the pelvis forward, like it's filled with water, and you're tipping it in, you're pouring it into something. Soften the front, one bone at a time, look forward, and then pelvis moves back, tail between your legs, your humble pie. Keep looking forward, lifting the front, toeing the front, pulling up as much as you can, and finally, head relaxes down. Great. Okay, I'll see how we're doing for time. That's about 20 minutes. So again, anybody joining late, feel free to jump in. We've done a couple of hip cars, a couple of things to wake up the back body. And today is all about the back body. It's off the posterior chain. Okay, so from here we'll just combine all those movements. So we've done flexion, we've done extension, we've done lateral flexion on both sides. Now you imagine your spine as a jump rope. So again, try to keep your, it doesn't actually, I was going to say try to keep your elbows straight, but here you want a little bit of freedom in here. So I'm going to move my ribs towards the left. Then I'm going to bring my body closer to the ground, bend my arms as I shift back to the right. So laterally flexing, extending on the right, and then lift up, let your head go, flexion at the top, and then the other side. I find it helpful here to close your eyes. Okay, everyone's going to look different doing this, and you just want to feel that you're getting some movement to the left, to the right, and you're getting into that extension and that flexion and change directions. So we all have a natural direction that we go to first, not always dependent on our handedness, but just a preference. So it's good to mix it up. Good. Okay, so from here, you can tuck your toes, lift your knees up as you send your pelvis back towards your heels. Keep the spine nice and long. Do that a couple times. You get a nice stretch in the feet and also in the spine. If it doesn't work, your knees won't pick up. Just kind of get a little bit of traction by pressing back with your hands, relaxing your head. And then from here, push back and then lift and come into your version of down dog. So a little bit wider with your hands, a bit wider with your feet, and then you can bend one knee as you straighten the other. Try to lift the toes, get into a nice stretch in the calves, maybe in the hamstrings. And now if you're comfortable doing this, bring the left foot in a little bit and lift up the right leg. Doesn't have to be super high. Lift it up, keep your pelvis level. And then can we explore that hip car that we did, sideline, but now changing it into a down dog. Change directions. If that's not doable at all, you can do the same thing. You can come back to all fours. Okay, change sides. And notice how it feels one side compared to the other. And then reverse it. We're essentially flipping it and reversing it. Missy Elliott would be happy. I probably have alienated some participants. That's okay. All right, we'll come to standing. Okay, so from standing, we didn't really do anything with our feet. So separate your feet just a little bit. Find a stacked position. You notice I'm out of breath, so that down dog hip car is no joke. So you want your feet about hip socket width, and lift up your toes. Your hands will probably want to participate here. That's okay. That sometimes is a way of your nervous system of allowing the movement to happen or facilitating the movement. So extend and then release down. Let's do that a couple times. Extend, lift, spread, and release down. One more time. Lift up, press into the pad of your big toe mound, your little toe mound, middle of your heel. Don't jam your knees back, which I tend to do. And then release down. So depending what shoes we're in, we're entering flip-flop season, your toes will grip. So there's usually a bias or we tend to favor, or the patterns in our feet tend to be flexion. So by lifting and extending, we're talking to the feet in a different way, and we're allowing the toes to participate in posture and to feel the ground and to send messages back up to the brain. So from here, toes are released and relaxed. press into them, that's fine. Float the weight forward, float the weight back, side to side, and then really feel those 3 points of contact in each foot. Big toe mound, little toe mound, middle of your heel, and then feel your arches pick up and move up towards your midline, towards your pelvic floor. So nice active feet to support all the stuff that we're going to get into here. So we'll start just with the hinge. So you want to have a neutral spine, so you can move one hand if you want to your sacrum, that flat bone just above your bum crack, to speak in layman's terms. It's usually the easiest way. And then we don't want any more extension to be happening. We don't want any rounding to be happening. We want to keep that curve of the low back, the curve of the neck, and the opposite curve happening in the mid-back as we move through our hinge. So your hand can either stay on your sacrum and one hand can come to the front, or what can also be helpful is to keep your hands at the front of your hips and actually use them to push your pelvis back as your pelvis rolls over your femurs. Okay, so find that nice balanced stance, active feet, soft knees, and then imagine you're pulling the ground back behind you, or those heel to bum knee flexion we did at the beginning. That same feel, that sensation that we got, imagine that happening, and then push those hip creases deeper as the bum goes back, and you imagine that you've got a straight line from skull to tail, and then come back up the same way. So let's do that a few times. So spilling, tipping the pelvis over the femurs, your big thigh bones, and you'll stop when you feel a stretch, or when you feel your spine change shape, and come back up. So it might just be a little baby hinge, great. It might be a slightly deeper hinge, but as soon as this starts to happen, I don't want you going there. Come back up, regain those natural curves, and then come back up again. Let's try that on one leg. So press your left leg against your right leg. Squeeze that heel in towards your bum. You can steady yourself if needed. I probably should have done that. And then keep that same action going, like you're swiping your foot back, and then that same movement, but now single leg hinge. Let's do 3 or 4 on one side, and we'll switch. So I could easily be doing this. I could come to the wall and steady myself as I go through my single leg hinge, or you can decide, you know what, I'm just going to keep going with my regular hinge, 2 feet on the ground, no problem. Switch sides. So I was on that side, squeeze in, try to keep your thighs parallel, active foot, steady yourself if you need, roll that pelvis over, feel that hamstring working, press the ground away, and come back up. Let's do 2 more. Notice what's happening with your breath. Can we still keep that breath, that 3-dimensional breath, moving all around the spine? Okay, both for awareness, but also for stability. Awesome. Okay, next, we're going to start with the right leg forward. Bring the left leg back just a little bit. You're still kind of in that hip socket width stance with your feet, and you're just coming to the ball of your foot, maybe a foot's length in behind you. I'll show you on the side, just like this. So same idea, we're going to hinge, and then we're going to bend. Imagine you've got 2 suitcases or 2 dumbbells in your hands. Come down, and then push back up. So it's that same hinge at the beginning. So it's not a straight up lunge. So we have the hinge. I've got the angle happening with my torso as compared to my pelvis and my femurs or my thighs. Come down, and then push the ground away. Let's do 5 on this side and 5 on the other. So active foot, lift and spread your toes and relax them down if you need to. And then I'll mention something about that standing leg or the front leg when we switch. So we'll do one facing you guys. So switch sides. So hip socket, width, step back. And again, if you've got anything happening with your knee or with your ankle, then just your depth isn't going to be quite as great. And also watch what your knee's doing. So we don't want any of this happening with the knee. Lift that arch, and then angle your knee. You want your knee going towards your pinky toe. Again, finding it's not just a straight up and down lunge. We've got our pelvis moving back in space, keeping the natural curves of our spine, and then pushing back up again. Let's do one more. Great, and then shake that out. Go back to whichever leg you started with. And we're going to lift that knee up, bend into that standing leg, and then I'm going to come in behind slightly, and then bend. So whereas before we did our hinge, and then we did our kickstand deadlift, which involved the hinge again, now with this curtsy squat, it's called, as you can tell, the foot comes to the side, and then try to keep your torso upright. I'm still doing the suitcase thing with my arms. You can do whatever you want with your arms. Okay, so that's the side view. So see how my leg in behind, the knee comes forward. Try to keep your standing leg, heel, rooted to the ground. And then for more difficulty, you could lift that knee up in between. Great, and switch sides. So come to balance, shift the weight over, soften that knee a little bit. Foot comes in behind. I'll leave the angle up to you. So the more you come forward with that standing leg, or if you leave it to float, that would be a more challenging version. But we just want to have that foot come in behind, and then it's just challenging the hip and the glute in a different way. So let's do 2 more. Knee up. One more, foot can just come to rest, take a little break if you want. Good, so what I notice about my breath, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, I really work hard to breathe through my nose, but as soon as my heart rate gets going, I revert to breathing through my mouth. So even if it becomes challenging, do your best to breathe through your nose. Just make sure that everything's okay over here. Hi guys. Okay, next we're going to revisit some of those positions from our hip car, but in isometrics. So find a couch, find a wall. We want the work to be not so much on the balancing. Yes, there's going to be a single leg balance involved, but I want you to be focused on the working leg, which is the non-balancing leg. So support yourself as needed. Okay, so we'll start with the left leg. Shift your weight to your right foot. Lift that knee up and actually use both hands or one hand. So say you're steadying yourself. Use your left hand to pull that leg up, dorsiflex the ankle, pull the toes up towards the shin, and then feel that hip flexor working to get you there, even though it's passive. I've got my hand helping me. Now, feeling the action or the sensation of that hip flexor lighting up to bring the knee up here, activate it further. Flex the foot, pull the knee up, get all those muscles on board, and then see if you can let go of that knee and not let it fall. 1 millimeter. So 3, 2, 1, and then slowly release it down to the ground. We're not done. Lift that knee up again, and now pull it out to the side without letting your pelvis rotate to the same side. Again, dorsiflex the ankle, pull the toes up towards the shin. So if your hip bones at the front here, your ASIS, are like your headlights to the car, you want the headlights going straight forward. I don't want the pelvis coming along for the ride to the side. So now same thing here. So maybe you've got a tight groin. This might be limited in a little bit, but you get to where you need to be. So we've got our hip flexion with abduction, abduction, moving away from the midline. Keep it there, contract all the muscles, don't let that knee drop, and let go. Hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then slowly lower down. So you should have been feeling all the feels there, especially in that outer hip. I know I was. And then one more, I'll turn side on so you can see what I'm doing. So same leg still. So you're holding yourself up with the opposite arm. Now try to keep your knees parallel your thigh directly below you or beneath you, and now pull that heel in towards your hamstring. Now squeeze it, hold it, and then reach back and actually bring it in a little bit further. But don't let the thigh come forward. So maybe you might need to find a little bit of a posterior tilt with your pelvis. And then as much as you can, so flex that ankle again, pull the toes towards the shin. And then as much as you can, try to keep the same shape. So activate that hamstring, keep it there, and then we'll hold it. Keep squeezing in. 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Shake it out. Change sides. You've got 2 legs. You've got to do the other side. Okay, so on this side, hip flexion, passive, so you can crank yourself up into it, but you don't want to go so far that you're leaning back. Okay, so make sure that you're being honest. Natural curves of the spine like we did in our hinge, but now in our passive hip flexion. Whoa, wobble. Okay, so from here, activate all those muscles, the top side of your thigh and your hip, the front side of your hip. Pull those toes up towards your shin. Hang on for dear life if you need to. And ready, and let go. Don't let that knee drop. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then slowly, still under control, lower it down. Okay, next, flexion plus moving away from the midline or abduction. So active ankle, pulling your toes in towards the shin, holding on ideally because this is where we want the work to be happening. So crank that up without your pelvis turning to the side. Activate those muscles, your hip flexors. Hold it there. Don't let it drop. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and getting a bit of shakes. Slowly lower down. Okay, one thing left, our hip extension, okay? So from here, as you reach back, okay, you see this stretch at the gym all the time or at the park, people doing this before they run or after, you get this kind of thing happening, or you go to grab your foot and then the knee comes forward. So try to keep the knee pointing directly down, flex that foot, pull the toes in towards the shin, squeeze the back of your thigh, try to hold it there, don't let it drop. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and fail with control, which we should probably have printed on a t-shirt. I feel like it's a pretty good life's motto. Okay, we'll come back down. I'm sweating, like I know it's hot out, but that's hard work, so good job everybody. Come back down to prone. We've got a couple minutes left. Thank you for everybody who's still here. I maybe would have taken off after the last exercises. So come back down, bring your pillow along or your block if you need. A little bit, one more exercise here before we finish. So come back, forehead down on the ground, tops of the feet resting. You can let your pelvis move from side to side, just shake out those hips, those glutes. Man, even my quads are feeling it. Okay, so from here, again, you can do the work with your head resting on something. If it feels okay for your neck, give yourself a double chin, the ever attractive double chin, and try to take the work out of the neck and bring it to your upper back. Reach your arms forward, contract your quads a little bit, your glutes, bring your pelvis forward, press your pubic bone down, press the tops of your feet down. So as you lift here, I don't want the feet lifting as well. So keep the feet driving down, and then lift the arms, and then externally rotate them. Okay, so to externally rotate, we're going to turn the palms up and the thumbs will face out. Do that as much as you can, and then with a little bit of extension happening in the spine, find your double chin, and then squeeze those elbows back towards your ribs. Let's do that 5 times. So external rotation and squeeze. 3 more. Okay, you can still do this with the head down if you want. Okay, don't be afraid to do that if you need. So I think this is 4. Let's do 1 more. Really feeling the work in the upper back. Good, and stack the hands, relax. Okay, to culminate, to end, we will be doing that external rotation with the squeeze, but also with our knee flexion. So we're going to flex the feet, pelvis is slightly posterior tilted, pressing the front of the pubic bone down, lower belly's lifted. Squeeze the heels as much as you can towards the bum without arcing the lower back. Lift the arms up and squeeze. So if any of you have done bow pose in yoga, this is kind of our active version of the bow pose. Keep reaching, squeezing the heels towards the bum. Let's do one more. Relax the legs, relax the upper body. From here, take the left arm, thread it underneath you, bring the right knee up for a twist, open the right arm to the side. If this twist is too intense, stack the knees, make it a little bit more gentle. Find your breath through your nose. Find that three-dimensional breath, even via the twist. One more breath, and on your exhale, try to let that opposite arm release down to the ground. Come back to prone. We'll do the opposite. Prone is just a fancy word for being on your belly. Thread the left arm through, roll, or actually right arm, I'm doing the mirror, roll through, left leg comes up, and then open up the left arm to the side. Again, adapting your twist to your body. If this feels cranky in the low back, your shoulder and your arm are somewhere in space, you can always rest your hand on your opposite hip. But if it just in general does not feel good, we want to be in a posture where you can breathe properly and relax. So stack the knees if you need to. And it's not a regression, okay? Doing what your body needs to be doing and recognizing what your body needs is as advanced a posture I can think of. Whether you're strength training or stretching or yogaing or doing mobility work. Go breathing through your nose. Do one more breath. And then option for anybody who would like to, you can end with a relaxation pose where we began. Hands stacked, forehead rested or resting on your hands, and find your crocodile breath. For 5 or 10 breaths, until your heart rate comes down and you really get a felt sense of what's going on with, I hope we weren't paused for too long. You get a felt sense of what's happening with your body in, hi guys, in your breath, in your recovery, and you're able to connect more deeply with your body and switch to that recovery mode. So I hope everybody enjoyed today's class. And that was off the posterior chain. Thanks, Vaughn. Hope Elsa and Kate enjoyed it too. So thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day.